The Groac'h of the Isle of Loch. In old times, when all kinds of wonderful things happened in Brittany, there lived in the village of Lannis a young man named Hogum, and a girl named Bella Postic. They were cousins, as their mothers were great friends, and constantly in and out of each other's house. They had often been laid in the same cradle, and had played and fought over their games. "When they are grown, they will marry," said the mothers. But yet, as everyone was beginning to think of wedding bells, two mothers died, and the cousins, who had no money, went as servants in the same house. This was better than being parted, of course, but not so good as having a little cottage of their own, where they could do as they liked, and soon they might have been heard bewailing to each other at the hardness of their lots. "If I could only manage to buy a cow and get a pig to fatten," grumbled Horn, "I would rent a bit of ground for the master, and then we could be married." "Yes," answered Bella with a deep sigh, "but we live in such hard times, and at last fair the price of pigs had risen again." "We shall have a long wait to wait. That is quite clear," replied Horn, turning away to his work. Whenever they met, they repeated their grievances, and at length Horn's patience was exhausted. One morning he came to Bella and told her that he was going away to seek his fortune. The girl was very unhappy as she listened to this, and felt sorry that she had not tried to make the best of things. She implored Horn not to leave her, but he would listen to nothing. "The birds," he said, "continue flying until they reach the field of corn, and the bees do not stop unless they find honey-giving flowers. And why should a man have less sense than they? Like them, I shall seek still until I get what I want, that is, money to buy a cow and a pig to fatten. If you love me, Bella, you won't attempt to hinder a plan which will hasten our marriage." The girl saw it was useless to say more, so she answered sadly, "Oh, go then, since you must. But first I will divide with you all that my parents left me." And going to her room, she opened a small chest, and took from it a bell, a knife, and a little stick. "This bell," she said, "can be heard at any distance, however far, but it only rings to warn us that our friends are in great danger. The knife frees all that touches it from spells that have been laid on them, while the stick will carry you wherever you want to go. I will give you the knife to guard you against the enchantments of the wizard, and the bell to tell me of your perils. The stick I shall keep for myself, so that I can fly to you if you ever have need of me." Then they cried for a little on each other's necks, and Huron started for the mountains. But in those days, as in these, beggars abound, and through every village he passed they followed Huron in crowds, mistaking him for a gentleman because there were no holes in his clothes. "There is no fortune to be made here," he thought to himself. "It is a place for spending and not earning. I must see and go further." And he walked on to Pont Aven, a pretty little town built on the bank of a river. He was sitting on a bench outside an inn when he heard two men who were loading their mules and talking about the Groac'h of the island Loch. "What is a Groac'h?" he asked. "I have never come across one." And the men answered that it was a given name of a fairy who dwelt in the lake, and that she was rich, richer than all the kings in the world put together. Many had gone to the island to try and get possession of her treasures, but no one had ever come back. As he listened, Huron's mind was made up. "I'll go too, and return too," he said to the muleteers. They stared at him in astonishment, and besought him not to be so mad and to throw away his life in such a foolish manner. He only laughed and answered that if they could tell him of any other way to purchase a cow and pig to fatten, he would think no more about it. But the men did not know how this was to be done, and shaking their heads over his obstinacy, left him to his fate. So Harn went down to the sea and found a boatman who engaged to take him to the Isle of Loch. The island was large, and lying almost across it was a lake, with a narrow opening to the sea. Warren paid the boatman and sent him away, and then proceeded to walk around the lake. At one end he perceived a small skiff, painted blue and shaped like a swan, lying under a clump of yellow broom. As far as he could see, the swan's head was tucked under its wing, and Hrund, who had never beheld a boat of such sort, went quickly towards it and stepped in, as to examine it better. But no sooner was he on board than the swan suddenly woke up. His head emerged from under his wing, and his feet began to move under the water. And in another moment they were in the middle of the lake. As soon as the young man had recovered from his surprise, he prepared to jump into the lake and swim to shore. But the bird had guessed his intentions and plunged beneath the water, carrying Hrund with him to the palace of Groac'h. Now, unless you have been under water in the sea and beheld all the wonders that lie there, you have never have an idea of what Groac'h's palace was like. It was all made of shells, blue and green and pink and lilac and white, shading into each other till you could not tell where one color and the other began. The staircases were crystal, and every separate stair sang like a woodland bird as you put your foot on it. Around the palace were great gardens full of all the plants that grow in the sea, with diamonds for flowers. In the large hall, the Groac'h was lying on a couch of gold. The pink and white of her face reminded you of the shells of the palace, while her long black hair was intertwined with strings of coral, and her dress of green silk seemed formed out of the sea. At the sight of her, Hrund stopped, dazzled by her beauty. "Amen," said the Groac'h, rising to her feet. "Strangers and handsome youths are always welcome here. Do not be shy, but tell me how you found your way, and what you want." "My name is Horn," he answered. "Lanius is my home, and I am trying to earn enough money to buy a little cow and a pig to fatten." "Well, you can easily get that," she replied. "It is nothing to worry about. Come in and enjoy yourself." And she beckoned him to follow her into a second hall, whose floors and walls were formed of pearls, while down the sides were the tables laden with fruit and wines of all kinds. And as he ate and drank, the Groac'h talked to him, told him how the treasures he saw came from shipwrecked vessels, and were brought to her palace by a magic current of water. "I do not wonder," said Horn, who now felt quite at home. "I do not wonder that the people on earth have so much to say about you." "The rich are always envied." "For myself," he added, with a laugh, "I ask only for half your wealth." "You can have it, if you will, Oren," answered the fairy. "What do you mean?" cried he. "My husband, Grandon, is dead," she replied, "and if you wish it, I will marry you." The young man gazed at her in surprise. Could anyone so rich and really beautiful really wish to be his wife? He looked at her again, and Bella was forgotten as he answered. "A man would be mad indeed to refuse such an offer. I can only accept it with joy." "Then the sooner it is done, the better," said Groac'h, and gave orders to her servants. After that was finished, she begged Horn to accompany her to a fish pond at the bottom of the garden. "Come, lawyer, come, miller, come, tailor, come, singer," cried she, and holding out a net of steel, and at each summons a fish appeared and jumped into the net. When it was full, she went into a large kitchen, threw them all into a golden pot, but above the boiling of the water, Horn seemed to hear the whispering of little voices. "Who is it whispering in the golden pot, Groac'h?" he inquired at last. "It is nothing but the noise of wood sparkling," she answered, but it did not sound the least like that to Horn. "There it is again," he said after a short pause. "The water is getting hot, and it makes the fish jump," she replied. But soon the noise grew louder, and like cries. "What is it?" asked Horn, beginning to feel uncomfortable. Just the crickets on the hearth, said she, and broke into a song which drowned out the cries from the pot. But though Horn held his peace, he was not as happy as before. Something seemed to have gone wrong, and then he suddenly remembered Bella. Is it possible I've forgotten her too? What a wretch I am, he thought to himself, and he remained apart and watched Groac'h while she emptied the fish into a plate, and bade him eat his dinner while she fetched wine from the cellar in a cave. Owen sat down and took out a knife which Bella had given him, but as soon as the blade touched the fish, the enchantment ceased, and 4 men stood before him. Horn, save us, we entreat you! Save yourself too! Murmured they, not daring to raise their voices. Why, it must have been you who I heard crying in the pot just now. Of course. Yes, it was us, they answered. Like you, we came to the Isle of Loch to seek our fortunes, and like you, we consented to marry the Groac'h. And no sooner was the ceremony over than she turned us into fishes, as she had done to all our forerunners, who are the fish pond still, where you will shortly join them. On hearing this, Horan leaped into the air, as if he felt ready himself frizzled in a golden pot. He rushed to the door, hoping a way to escape, but the Groac'h, who had heard everything, met him on the threshold. Instantly she threw the steel net over his head, and the eyes of a little green frog peeped through the meshes. You shall go and play with the rest, she said, carrying him off to the fish pond. This very moment, Bella, who had been skimming the milk at the dairy farm, heard the fairy bell tinkle violently. As soon she grew pale, for she knew it meant that Horan was in danger, and hastily changing to the rough dress she wore for work, she left the farm with her magic stick in her hand. Her knees were trembling under her, but she ran as fast as she could across the crossroads, where she drove the stick into the ground, murmuring as she did as a child the verse her mother taught her. Little staff of apple tree, over the earth and over the sea, up in the air to guide me, everywhere to wander free. And immediately the stick became a little smart horse, with a rosette in each ear and a feather on its forehead. He stood very still while Bella scrambled up, and then he darted off, his pace growing quicker and quicker, till at length the girl could hardly see the trees and the houses they flashed past. But rapid as the pace was, it was not rapid enough for Bella, who stopped and said, The swallow is left swift in the wind is left swift in lightning, but you, my horse, if you love me, must be swifter than them all, for there is a part of my heart that suffers, the best part of my heart is in danger. And the horse heard her, and galloped like a straw carried along by tempests till they reached the foot of a rock, called the Leap of the Deer. Then he stopped, for no horse or mule that was ever born could climb that rock, and Bella knew it. So she began to sing again. Horse of Leon given to me, over the earth and over the sea, up in the air be guide to me, everywhere to wander free. And when she had finished, the horse's foreleg grew shorter and spread into wings. His hind wings became claws, feathers spread all over his body, and she sat on the back of a great bird, which bore her to the summit of the rock. Here she found a nest made of clay and lined with dried moss, and in the center a tiny man, black and wrinkled, who gave her a cry of surprise at the sight of Bella. Ah! You are the pretty girl who wants come to save me. To save you? Repeated Bella. But who are you, my little friend? I am the husband of the Groac'h of the Isle of Loch. It is owing to her that I am here. But what are you doing here in this nest? I am sitting on 6 eggs of stone, and I shall be set free till they hatch. On hearing this, Bella began to laugh. Poor little cock, said she, and how am I to deliver you? By delivering Horan, who is in the power of Groac'h. Tell me how I can manage that, and if I have to walk around the whole of Brittany on bended knees, I will do it. Well, first you must dress yourself as a young man, and then go and seek the Groac'h. When you have found her, you must contrive to get hold of the net of seal that hangs around her waist, and shut her up in it forever. But where am I to find a young man's clothes? Asked she. I will show you, he replied, and as he spoke he pulled out 3 of his red hairs and blew them away, muttering something a while. In a twinkling of an eye, the 4 hairs changed into 4 tailors, of whom the first carried cabbage, the second a pair of scissors, the third a needle, and the fourth an iron. Without wasting any orders, they sat down in the nest and, crossing their legs comfortably, began to prepare a suit of clothes for Bella. The one with the leaves of cabbage made her a coat, and another served for the waistcoat, but it took two for the wide breeches, which were then in fashion. The hat was cut from the heart of the cabbage, and a pair of shoes from the thick stem. And when Bella had put them all, you would have taken her for a gentleman dressed in green velvet, lined with white satin. She thanked the little men gratefully, and after a few more instructions, she jumped on the back of her great bird, and was borne away to the Isle of Loch. Once there, she bade him transform himself back into a stick, and with it in her hand she stepped into the blue boat, which conducted her to the Palace of the Shells. The Groac'h seemed overjoyed to see her, and told her that never before had she seen such a handsome young man. Very soon she led her visitor to a great hall where wine and fruit were always waiting, and on the table lay the magic knife, left there by Herm. Unseen by the Groac'h, Bella hid it in the pocket of her green coat, then followed her hostess into the garden, and to the pond which contained the fish, and their sides shining with 1,000 different colors. "Oh, how beautiful creatures," she said. "I'm sure I should never be tired of watching them." And she sat down on the bank, with her elbows on her knees, and her chin in her hands, her eyes fixed on the fishes as they flashed past. "Would you not have liked to stay here always?" asked the Groac'h, and Bella answered that she desired nothing better. "Then you have to marry me," said the Groac'h. "Oh, don't say no. I've fallen deeply in love with you." "Well, I won't say no," replied Bella with a laugh, "but you must promise me first to let me catch all those lovely fish with your net." "It is not so easy as it looks," rejoined Groac'h, smiling. "But take it and try your luck." Bella took the net which Groac'h held out, and, turning rapidly, flung it over the witch's head. "Become and embody what you were in your soul," cried she. In an instant, the lovely fairy of the sea was a toad, horrible to look upon. She struggled hard to tear the net asunder, but it was no use. Bella only drew it tighter, and flinging the sorceress into a pit, she rolled a great stone across the mouth and left her. As she drew near the pond, she saw a great procession of fishes advancing to meet her, crying in hoarse tones, "This is our lord and master, who has saved us from the net of steel and the pot of gold." "And who will restore you to your proper shapes?" said Bella, drawing the knife from her pocket. But just as she was going to touch the formless fish, her eyes fell on a green frog on his knees beside her, his little paws crossed over his heart. Bella felt as if his fingers were tightening around her throat, but she managed to cry. "Is it you, my Orn? Is this you?"
"It is I,"
croaked the little frog, and as the knife touched him, he was a man again, and springing up, he clasped her in his arms. "But we must not forget the others," she said at last, and began to transform the fishes back to their proper shapes. There were so many of them that it took a long time. Just as she had finished, there arrived a little dwarf from Deer's Leap, in a car drawn by 6 cough-shapers, which had been the 6 stone eggs. "Here I am," he exclaimed. "You have broken the spell that held me, and now come to get your reward." And dismounting from his chariot, he led them down to the caves filled with gold and jewels, and bade Bella and Orn take as much as they wanted. When their pockets were full, Bella ordered her stick to become a winged carriage, large enough to bear them, and all the men they rescued, back to Lenalis. There they were married the next day, but instead of setting up housekeeping with a little cow and pig to fatten that they'd so long wished for, they were able to buy lands for miles around for themselves, gave each man who had been delivered from the Groac'h's small farm, where he lived happily to the end of his days.